Hey, Battle Bill, here with another video, and today we're going to be voyaging into some more Voyager Cup battles. Now, in the last video, we talked about Galvantula and its potential use in the Voyager Cup. We talked about strengths, its weaknesses, and potential teams of 3 to use Galvantula in. Now, today we're going to talk about a Pokemon a little near and dear to my heart that has not been on the Great League PvP meta map in a long time, and that Pokemon is going to be Marshtomp. Now, you might be saying, Battle Bill, there's a reason why Marshtomp's kind of faded away. Because Whiscash is a very strong mud boy, and Swampert, ever since it got Hydro Cannon, essentially outclasses Marshtomp. Now, those are both very true statements. But what's special about this Voyager Cup is that you get 6 picks, and each of those picks have to be from a specific generation. And I think it's Generation 3 where the Mud Boys fall in, Whiscash and Swampert. And if you decide you don't want a Mud Boy in that generation, you cannot pick them as your wild card pick that you get for the Voyager Cup because they fall in a restricted list of 30 Pokemon that can't be picked for wild card picks. What's special about Marshtomp? It does not fall into that restricted ban list, which means if you still want a Mud Boy and you decide to yourself you want a different Pokemon for your Generation 3 Mon, you can still have a Mud Boy in the use of Marshtomp. Now, what's also really good about Marshtomp is that it gets Mud Bomb, like Whiscash does, but it also gets Surf, which is a Water-type charge move, and it's pretty quick to get to. Now, it's not as strong as Swampert's Hydro Cannon, but Swampert's downfall a little bit is that its ground type move is Earthquake, which takes a lot longer to charge up than Mud Bomb does on Marshtomp. And Whiscash's downfall a little bit, it gets Mud Bomb, but then its second charge move is not even a water type charge move, it's actually Blizzard, which is great for specific situations, but I feel that Marshtomp being able to have a ground type charge move and a water type charge move that it can get to quickly gives it its own little specific niche in this Voyager Cup. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into some battles against my friends here, Antonio, and we're going to talk about my team and we're going to talk about his team. So my team hasn't actually changed much since the last video I uploaded. I'm still running Marshtomp, Galvantula, Venusaur, Altaria, Lucario, and Azumarill. Now my opponent here is running a very unique team in his own right versus the other teams you saw in the last video. He's running Azumarill, Gallade, Ninetales, Probopass, Tropius, and Alolan Raichu. So now, let's get into some battles and let's talk about Marshtomp's potential usability in this Voyager Cup meta. So, the way I decide to use Marshtomp here is I'm going to use it in the back. My team of 3 in this first battle is going to be Altaria, Venusaur, and Marshtomp. I'm going to start this battle by leading with Altaria, and my friend here is going to be leading this battle with Alolan Raichu. So we get off to a strong start. Altaria has a positive matchup against Alolan Raichu because Alolan Raichu typically, and I've said this I feel like a couple times already, where its moveset consists of either electric type moves or Grass Knot to cover its weakness. My friend here is actually running his Alolan Raichu with Thunder Punch and Wild Charge. So here I get to this Sky Attack. I'm about to throw it as Alolan Raichu. I don't know if you guys noticed, but those flying bubbles seem to be a lot further apart. I've been missing a lot more of those recently. But at this point, he shields that Sky Attack, and I try to swap out to catch a charge move. Because before we started this, I didn't know his Alolan Raichu was running Wild Charge. So I was very scared to bring my Marshtomp in, because if it was running Grass Knot, it could easily get one shot. But now I brought in my Marshtomp to catch that Alolan Raichu's move, and he swapped in a Tropius right away. So now I'm trying to just use whatever energy I have to throw this Surf that I'm about to throw, and land it on the Tropius to do as much minor damage as possible. It was a good thing I decided to actually swap in Marshtomp the way that I did, because it essentially saves my Altaria to come and deal with this Tropius. If I would have left Altaria in to deal with his Alolan Raichu, my Altaria would have been a lot weaker against this Tropius, and my Marshtomp and Venusaur would not have had very positive matchups against this Tropius, since it's running the Air Slash variant. If it was running Razor Leaf, it would shred through my Marshtomp, just like that Leaf Blade did, but Venusaur would have a little bit of a better matchup against a Tropius, because you can always get those Sludge Bombs through. But with Air Slash, it charges up moves pretty quick. As you can see, he's throwing a charge move here against my Altaria that just came in. But this charge move is Aerial Ace, and it does very minimal damage. And right now, he doesn't know what I have in the back, and I currently have a shield advantage. So when I get to this Sky Attack, I'm pretty sure my opponent here decides not to shield, because he doesn't want to be at that far of a shield disadvantage. So he decides not to. I swap in Venusaur to try and just farm down the Tropius a tiny bit. That Air Slash hurt a little bit considering it was only one fast move. And his last Pokemon here happens to be Azumarill. And at this point in the match, this game is over. I have a 2 shield to 1 shield advantage against him, and I have a Venusaur against his Azumarill, which in certain situations wouldn't look as positive as it currently does because Azumarill does have access to that Ice Beam, which is a pretty heavy-hitting Ice Charge type attack. Charge type attack, yep. And he just threw it there. And it would do some solid damage to my Venusaur. At its current health, I'm pretty sure it would take it out. So I'm just going Farm City. I knew he had a Alolan Raichu in the back. He brings it in. He's throwing, I'm assuming, is going to be a Thunder Punch. But regardless of whichever move it is, not going to do much damage to Venusaur because it's resisted. So I'm like, alright, at this point, I banked up so much energy. I can farm his Alolan Raichu down because it's very glassy. And I know the only thing he has left is his Azumarill. So once he brings it in with no shields, I throw a Frenzy Plant, and essentially ends this match. Now, what I think my opponent was trying to do in that first match with his Alolan Raichu was he was trying to catch my Frenzy Plant to like give him a chance, considering he was at such a shield disadvantage. But I already knew I could go to Farm City on his Azumarill, so I was just kind of waiting for him to try and pull off that sacrificial swap. And when he did, I farmed down the Alolan Raichu and ended up in an even better situation. So that's the first match of the set, and Marshtomp was used a little bit there. It was more of a sacrificial type Pokemon, the way I ended up using it in that first battle. But as we go a little bit further, we'll see some better uses for Marshtomp. In this next battle, I actually use it as a lead, and I'm going up against his Alolan Raichu. Now, like I mentioned before, this is a great matchup because his Alolan Raichu is not running Grass Knot. So he decides to swap it out, and he brings in Azumarill. I bring in Lucario, which isn't exactly a counter for Azumarill, but I want my Marshtomp to land on his Alolan Raichu later, and I definitely don't want to bring in Altaria against his Azumarill. His Azumarill is running Ice Beam because we just seen it thrown here, and I actually don't remember if he's running the Play Rough or a Hydro Pump variant. But what I do know is if he's running Ice Beam and Play Rough, I do resist both those moves, as much as Lucario is very glassy. So here, I charge up to a Shadow Ball, but threw a Power Punch because I was trying to get that shield that I just got. I want him to think a Shadow Ball was coming, because even though it's not super effective, it chunks away at Azumarill well. So at this point, he throws an Ice Beam, and because I baited him, I decide to shield because Lucario is now powered up. I charge up to another Shadow Ball, and this time I decide to throw the Shadow Ball because it'll either get that last shield he has and even out the playing field, or it'll take out a big chunk. I get the shield from his Azumarill, and now I'm just hoping I can do enough counters and maybe get to a Power-Up Punch because I know he's got to be at his next charge move soon. I'm not getting all the way to a Shadow Ball. I'm not going to take a chance and let my energy get completely wasted. I'd rather throw a Power-Up Punch, and somehow his Tropius got in. It was a good swap on his play. It wasn't any error with the game. It's more of a visual thing where Niantic updated PvP like they always do, and they seem to always update the game and cause more issues. You don't even see the swap as it's happening. But I know he pulled off the swap. It wasn't any type of glitch or anything along those lines. Just a little salty it happened. But it's fine because I have Altaria in the back and he has no shields, which means I can go to town farming up his Tropius. I can land one Sky Attack on it and then probably have another Sky Attack for whatever Pokemon he decides to bring in. He goes for that Aerial Ace. I'm continuing to farm. I think I'm at 2 Sky Attacks, so I decide to throw one of them. And I know once I decide to throw this, it will take out the remaining health of his Tropius. And he has 2 Pokemon left. I think, yeah, one of them is Raichu and one of them is Azumarill. And I didn't care what was coming in. I just knew Sky Attack was going to do good damage. And I didn't want to take a chance of getting greedy and him landing a charge move before I could throw off that Sky Attack. He sent his Alolan Raichu to catch that Sky Attack, and now he sent in Azumarill. I bring in my Marshtomp because there's a bunch of energy, and I'm throwing this Mud Bomb now at his Azumarill. At this point, Azumarill usually would have a positive matchup against Marshtomp, especially in a no-shield situation if he was running Hydro Pump, Play Rough. Honestly, Marshtomp is not the tankiest, but one of its benefits is that look at how quick I'm getting to both of my charge moves. I got to Mud Bomb and Surf very quickly, and I'm going to now throw this Mud Bomb at his Azumarill to finish it off. And then his Alolan Raichu is going to come back in here, and there's not too much it can do. If it threw a Wild Charge, it would finish me off. I don't remember if this is a Wild Charge or a Thunder Punch, but if it's a Thunder Punch, it's definitely not finishing off my Marshtomp, because it's not, Marshtomp's not glassy. He's just not as bulky as Whiscash or Swampert are. So here, he threw Thunder Punch, didn't finish me off. Now I'm going to throw the Mud Bomb, and this will finish off our last match. And that's really one of the main strengths. We get a little bit of lag here. But that's one of the main strengths of Marshtomp, similar to the other Mud Boys, is that it can fire off charge moves extremely quickly. And having two quick charge moves like Mud Bomb, like Silph, unlike Whiscash and Swampert, where Swampert has Earthquake and Whiscash has Blizzard, Marshtomp has two charge moves that I can get to quickly. So it offers a lot of diversity in what I can dish out there in a fast fashion, essentially. Because if I'm facing something that resists ground, I don't want to be able to just throw ground moves at it, like that Tropius we saw earlier. As much as Tropius resists Surf, I'm pretty sure because it's flying type, it double resists the ground moves. Somebody can correct me in the comment section, but it would only single resist Surf because it's a grass type. So I'd rather throw Surf in that situation, and there are other situations where I still want to get to that Surf pretty quickly. So now we're heading into this third battle. I decide to kind of keep Marshtomp in the back. I have it protected very well with Venusaur, with Altaria, because of its weaknesses and whatnot. Altaria covers its grass weakness. Venusaur just offers me additional coverage. And now we're going to get into this next battle. And I actually decide to leave Venusaur, and this is where I regret not leading with Altaria, because he leads with his Gallade. So he's got Gallade against my Venusaur, and as much as Gallade's a pretty glassy Pokemon, those confusions really chunk at Venusaur being a poison type. And one thing I did here, I swapped in Marshtomp after Gallade charged up a bunch. Don't ever do that. I was surprised my opponent didn't make me pay. He decided to swap out his Gallade and save it for later. Mostly because you can see how little that Mud Bomb ended up doing to his Tropius, and his Tropius is going to finish off my Marshtomp really quick. But you don't want to do that because Gallade has Leaf Blade, and a move like Leaf Blade is going to one-shot a Marshtomp because of its water and ground typing. Now, like I think I mentioned earlier, one of the positives of running Marshtomp with both Mud Bomb and Surf is that Surf can help you essentially do better damage against a grass and flying type like Tropius's. Actually, I might even want to consider running Sludge. I'll have to go back and debate that because Sludge would deal super effective damage to a grass type like Tropius. But here, he's going to throw a Leaf Blade and finish off my Marshtomp, and I'm going to bring in my Altaria, who's essentially going to try and farm down his Tropius. Now, he has a bunch of energy, so he's going to get to, I think, 2 Aerial Aces here. But the Aerial Aces do very minimal damage, so I'm willing to take them, and I'm willing to just continue this farm down that I'm doing to his Tropius. Yep, here comes that second Aerial Ace. And I'm going to wait to see what else he has in the back. I know he has that Gallade, which will do solid damage against my Venusaur. And I don't know what his other Pokemon is, but I would really prefer to have my Altaria on his Gallade. Unfortunately, his other Pokemon ends up being a Azumarill. So I try to swap in my Venusaur really quick to throw a Frenzy Plant right away. This will force a shield, because if he doesn't shield, this is going to take Azumarill down a chunk. And I'm pretty sure at this point he had 2 shields. Now, he brings in his Gallade, and it's going to confusion me down as much as it can. He goes for the charge move here because he doesn't want me to get to another Frenzy Plant, but I also have 2 shields. So I'm going to shield this Leaf Blade, even though it doesn't do much damage. It's the confusions that would have finished me off, so I had to shield the Leaf Blade. And now I'm going for another Frenzy Plant to either finish off his Gallade or get that last shield. And I don't get the last shield, I finish off the Gallade. Which I'm thinking to myself is, okay, maybe this is my only chance to possibly pull this out. Because my last 2 Pokemon did not end up in the best situations, considering in the beginning of this match, I lost lead with the Gallade on Venusaur. So I throw another Frenzy Plant, luckily, because those bubbles do very minimal damage to my Venusaur. But they do start to add up, and my Venusaur was so low, he was able to farm me down with those bubbles. And now Altaria is coming in, and Altaria is going to be throwing a Sky Attack. Now, I'm hoping to myself that Altaria farmed up enough energy before, because I know he's definitely at least 1 Ice Beam, but I do have a shield. So, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping, can I do enough Dragon Breaths to get to the next Sky Attack, and will it all do enough damage to finish off his Azumarill? Unfortunately, that Azumarill has a bunch of health, and it also has a bunch of energy. So he actually gets to that next Ice Beam before I can even get to another Sky Attack, and he finishes off this match and wins it. So this match didn't really highlight too much of Marshtomp's strengths, but it really did a good job of highlighting its weaknesses. which is Leaf Blade, and for obvious reasons considering its typing. I might actually continue to debate myself. I need to run through the options. I gotta see where having Silph on Marshtomp might benefit it, considering Silph would be super effective against fire types, but so would something like Mud Bomb. Maybe I'll give Sludge a try to try and cover Marshtomp's weakness to grass. But anyhow, we're in this next match, and I have an Altaria lead on his Ninetales, and I think I actually changed up my team this match a little bit. I think I went with Altaria, Marshtomp, and Galvantula. So Altaria on Ninetales is a good lead. I'm throwing my Sky Attack here, but he swapped out his Ninetales just in time for his other Pokemon, Azumarill, to catch my Sky Attack. But that ends up working out a little bit better for me because I brought Galvantula this time. So Galvantula is just going to start chunking away at Azumarill, especially now that Galvantula has 2 shields. We saw in the last video how much damage a Galvantula can do when it has shields to protect it. Because again, that Ice Beam, as much as it's neutral damage, would still hurt Galvantula a bunch. So I overcharge. I'm throwing this Discharge. I overcharge because I'm assuming he's not going to shield his Azumarill because of how much those quick move Volt Switches are doing, and he doesn't shield. And I know that Ninetales is going to come in because it has Fire Spin as its quick move, and that's going to shred through my Galvantula. So I'm hoping just to do a little bit of extra chip damage, maybe get a shield out of him because Discharge is a pretty heavy-hitting, quick charge move. And I actually do get the shield, and now he is throwing his charge move, which ends up being Psyshock. I'm pretty sure he ends up undercharging this, which means he's not swiping all the bubbles because we CMP tied, and he wants to be able to try and farm up my Galvantula as much as possible. He was probably hoping he could beat me to the charge move or win the CMP tie, because I don't know how that CMP tie plays out, and now we just learned. So I bring in Altaria. Altaria has a very good matchup against his Ninetales. Psyshock is not the strongest charge move when it only deals neutral damage like it does to Altaria. But here I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what his last Pokemon is. So I don't really want my Altaria to take too much damage because he has Tropius. So I'm going to bring in my Marshtomp to essentially bait out his last Pokemon since its Ninetales is pretty low in health anyway. And turns out I was right. It is Tropius. So I have to play out this matchup pretty safely, or just very cautiously. That's what I'm looking for. So now I'm trying to throw as many Surfs as possible. I want to try and help out my Altaria as much as I can. I know that he's going to overfarm here because he can essentially one-shot my Marshtomp with a Leaf Blade, and he definitely wants to be able to deal a bunch of damage to the Altaria by the time he's done with this Marshtomp. So he's going to town, farming me up. He actually gets to his charge move here. We CMP tie, and I'm going to let this Leaf Blade go through, and it's going to finish me off. But now I have a bunch of energy. He is now throwing another Aerial Ace here. I know it won't finish me off. I want to save my shield just to be as safe as possible playing out the situation. His Ninetales in the back also has energy, so I can't let him try and pull a quick swap on me. And now I'm just going to farm up as much extra energy as I can and hope that I time this properly. So I'm throwing a Sky Attack here. He has one more shield. His Ninetales is in farm range, so he's definitely going to use his last shield on this. And this is where my opponent makes a mistake. He swaps in his Ninetales even though his Tropius had energy. When he swaps in his Ninetales, I'm able to shield his Psyshock here, and I'm able to farm down his Ninetales because those Fire Spins are resisted. That gave me just enough energy to get to another Sky Attack. And because of that, we actually CMP tie on the last charge move. I get to my Sky Attack before he gets to his Aerial Ace because of the CMP, and I'm able to actually finish off this match and take the win in a very tough situation. So the way my opponent could have played that out a little bit better was what he could have done was he could have thrown the Aerial Ace. It would have forced the shield on my Tropius, and then that Psyshock he had would have done just enough damage to finish off my Altaria. And if he would have thrown his Tropius' charge move first, I wouldn't have been able to farm up any extra energy like I was able to on his Ninetales to then CMP tie with him to end the match. So that was a slight mistake on his part. I will take wins any way I can get them, especially in any battle, whether it's practice or Silph, because when you're playing high-level opponents like I'm currently playing, it's not easy to pull off these wins. So I'll take it. Now, this next match, I decide to actually not bring Marshtomp. I go with a line of Azumarill, Altaria, and Venusaur, and I immediately regret it. He decides he wants to lead with Raichu, and I'm like, oh man, Marshtomp would have done so great here. So I swap out Azumarill, bring in Altaria. What does he bring in? Probopass. So now let's talk about Marshtomp's strength. Marshtomp would have eaten his Probopass alive, and it also would have eaten his Alolan Raichu alive because it's not running Grass Knot. So I'm just kind of like, darn, I really wish I would have brought Marshtomp this match. The one time I don't bring it, but it's an important lesson to realize. So, we're continuing this match. His Probopass is throwing its Rock Slide. I'm not going to shield it because Altaria essentially can't do much damage to his Probopass, and I know if I shield it, he's just going to farm me up even more. And I'm just hoping I can get to this Dragon Pulse because I want to do as much chip damage on his Probopass as possible, and then see what see what my Venusaur and Azumarill can possibly do to maybe give me an advantage in this match. Because right now, it's not looking that great. I'm not in the best situation. I'm just going to let Altaria go down. He definitely farmed up some extra energy here, but I guess he didn't want to get too greedy, so he threw that Rock Slide, and I'm debating to myself, which one of these Pokemon have the best matchup here? I decided to go with Azumarill, and this was also risky. This was risky because it depends on my opponent's moveset on his Probopass. You can either run Rock Slide, Magnet Bomb, or Thunderbolt on your Probopass, and based on him throwing this Rock Slide right here, that essentially tells me he is not running Thunderbolt, which I'm very happy about. I didn't want to shield it because he was throwing Thunderbolt, then I'm like, you know what, there's no point in me keeping this Azumarill alive. I'm essentially just going to lose the match, and I might as well just bring a Venusaur and see what it can do with 2 shields. But he doesn't have Thunderbolt, so I farm up energy on Azumarill. I swap in Venusaur. I try to Vine Whip it down. He swaps. He brings his Alolan Raichu back in, which I found interesting, because Alolan Raichu does not have a positive matchup against my Venusaur. And I didn't know if this was a Thunder Punch or Wild Charge, and because I was already at a disadvantage, I didn't want to take that chance. Of course, it's Thunder Punch, but now I'm just going to farm up as much energy on this Raichu as possible. He's going for another charge move. I'm not going to use another shield. It ends up being the Wild Charge this time, which does half of my remaining health. And I ended up CMP tying with my Frenzy Plant on his Wild Charge. So he decided to shield it, which I'm surprised about. I thought he would have let it go down, and now I'm thankful he did that because now I can farm up another Frenzy Plant and make it essentially like he wasted that shield. So I go for this Frenzy Plant here. He doesn't shield it, which is like, alright, maybe I have a little bit more of a chance here. It all depends on his last Pokemon. And now I know why he brought in his Alolan Raichu. Because his last Pokemon here is Azumarill. And again, we've talked about Azumarill and Venusaur and how that matchup goes. But when we both have shields and my Venusaur has an energy advantage, this is a very positive matchup for my Venusaur. So he shields the first Frenzy Plant. I'm just farming up. I think he was trying to catch a charge move or throw a charge move, but he didn't realize how little health his Probopass had left on it. So when he threw it in, it kind of immediately went down without him doing anything. Azumarill comes back in. He throws the Ice Beam, which gets shielded. And now I get to this Frenzy Plant. And what looked like a very poor last match for me ends up turning into a win. This Frenzy Plant's going to take it down for the most part. And then my Azumarill is running Ice Beam and Play Rough at this current time. And that's going to be more than enough to take down the remaining health in the Azumarill and win me this match. So, this was a solid set of 5 matches against my friend. It showcased Marshtomp, its strengths, its weaknesses. We'll recap them really quick. That last match, ironically, I didn't use Marshtomp, and it probably showcased its main strength the most, which is those steel types like Probopass and those electric types like Raichu. Marshtomp would have made that match a lot easier of a win for me. Didn't really make that much sense. But it would have made it an easier win if I would have brought Marshtomp during that match. Instead, I was able to squeak it out based on a mistake from my opponent again. And like I mentioned before, some of these matches you're going to pull out wins because of your opponent's mistakes. And those are valuable matches to pay attention to because you want to learn from their mistakes, you want to learn from your own mistakes, and you want to make sure that essentially when you go into those Silph tournaments or any battles that are being ranked and counted, that you don't make those same mistakes. So overall, I'm really liking Marshtomp for this Voyager Cup. I'm going to debate again if I want to use Sludge on my Marshtomp instead of Surf. I have to look through the simulations and whatnot, see where that would give my Marshtomp a better advantage. Maybe I'll make another video on that. But overall, let me know what you think of Marshtomp in the Voyager Cup. Let me know what 6s you would run with a Marshtomp. Or again, just let me know what 6s you're testing out for Voyager Cup. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video.